Hello everyone and welcome back to TowerGate. It is TowerGate day number 491. 491. July the 14th, 2018. Thank you so much for tuning in. Well, it's going to be a very busy Saturday morning here on TowerGate. A lot of things to talk about. First, before I even get to the main notes that I'd taken for this morning's video, we learned late last night that we are getting our first word about how those closed sessions with Lisa Page might have gone. And it appears they went really well. Mark Meadows is saying that they learned a lot of things from Lisa Page, a lot of things they didn't know. And specifically, they learned a lot of things, got answers to a lot of questions that Peter's been stroking us would not answer. Now let's keep in mind, Lisa Page was the Department of Justice attorney who was the counselor to Andrew McCabe, the deputy FBI director. She answered directly to, of course, her boss at DOJ, but also she was there to be in the service of Andy McCabe, the deputy FBI director. So the Department of Justice provides a lawyer. She was essentially Andrew McCabe's personal attorney to advise him on various matters. So that was the position she held. So she's really a higher level than Peter's been stroking us. She's not his boss, but she is in the upper crust. He's number 2 in counterintelligence. He answers to number 1 in counterintelligence, and then up the chain. Lisa Page is a DOJ lawyer who is the right-hand legal counsel to McCabe. So she's at a higher slice than Peter's been stroking us. And she's also on the DOJ legal side as opposed to the FBI side. So you really are getting different input, a different view than what you would get from Peter's been stroking us. And the difference is, as we're learning from the early word, is that unlike Peter's been stroking us, who mostly lied and refused to answer a lot of questions, Lisa Page is apparently being very cooperative. They're very happy with her cooperation. In fact, it's going so well, she's coming back on Monday to talk some more. It appears that Lisa Page, again, we talked about this about a week ago. Peter's been stroking us, and Andy McCabe tried to throw her under the bus. It was her revelations to Horowitz which opened up a whole other line of inquiry into Andrew McCabe, which ultimately led to his being fired. So let's keep that in mind. So the early word is that Lisa Page is being very cooperative, and they're very happy, and she's coming back for more. That's the early word. Oh, we're also learning something else, that apparently what they learned today, one thing they learned from her today, implicates Rod Rodenstein. Rod Rodenstein, essentially the Attorney General. He's the essentially the deputy AG, but of course the actual Attorney General, the eager beaver, the overachiever, Jeff Sessions. Jeff Sessions. No one knows where Jeff is. I guess he's probably having a cup of warm milk and getting a belly rub, reading the Washington Times. So in his absence, we have Rod Rodenstein. Now, what we learned from Lisa Page is that apparently about 7 months ago, Devin Nunes reached an agreement with Rod Rodenstein to provide witnesses and documents. And supposedly at that meeting, Rodenstein had agreed they would turn over all requested documents, unredacted, and produce the witnesses that Nunes wanted. And there were 8. Lisa Page and Peter's been stroking us were 2 of those people on the list. But they found out today from talking to Lisa Page, that's Loose Lisa Page, they found out from talking to Loose Lisa Page that she didn't get any of those messages relayed to her from Rodenstein that she needed to make herself available to the House Intelligence Committee. She's saying, well, they never said anything to me. So for the past 7 months, Rodenstein has been pretending that he's been making these people available, but they haven't been able to become available, and it appeared as if it was just them stonewalling. But now it appears it's because Rodenstein was not directing the DOJ to have these FBI and DOJ employees make themselves available for the committees. He's been hiding them and protecting them and dodging for them, while at the same time telling Nunes that he had given the thumbs up and given the word that they were to cooperate to make an appointment to testify to the committee. So, in other words, they've caught Rod Rodenstein in a big fat lie, many lies, going over a period of 7 months. And as a result, the early whispers are now is that they are gathering right now, late in the evening, on Friday evening, they're gathering to put together the votes for a floor vote on Monday to impeach Rod Rodenstein. That's what's going around. They may try to impeach Rod Rodenstein on Monday morning based on what they learned today from Lisa Page in the closed session. So, we'll continue to follow this. She'll be back on Monday. We'll probably learn a lot more over the next few hours. Monday we'll get even more information, and it very well could be that loose Lisa Page could become the John Dean of Spygate. She may be the one who decides, I'm not going down for these people. And she knows they're going down. She knows Peter Van Stroken was lying yesterday. She knows he's going down, along with McCabe and Comey and a whole bunch of other people. Maybe she's going to try to position herself to have been a victim in all of this. Just doing what she was told sort of thing. So we're going to find out a lot more in the next few days to come, but this could be a major break in the saga, you might say. Now, let's get on to some current news. It appears that Uncle Bob the Executioner and Rodenstein have indicted 12 Russian intel officials whom they're indicting for their hacking, so to speak, into the 2016 election. Well, I'm not really sure if Russia is going to respond or not, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do. Now, the last time Uncle Bob the Executioner and Rodenstein and the boys decided to launch a publicity stunt, it backfired on them when they launched the charges against 12 Russian trolls and 3 Russian companies, one of which was not even in existence when the alleged crimes apparently took place. So it looks like Uncle Bob the Executioner learned his lesson and realized, hey, it's a bad idea to pull a publicity stunt on a private company because they'll probably hire lawyers. So he decided it was safer to do it with 12 Russian intel officers who he knows that the Russian government is not going to turn over 12 Russian intelligence officers to Uncle Bob. But Uncle Bob never intends to do anything with this either. This is also a publicity stunt. And we know that because immediately after reading the charges and Uncle Bob and Rodenstein going through it, they tell us that they're going to be turning it over to the DOJ NSD division. They're going to turn it over to the Department of Justice NSD division, National Security Division, which means it's going to be buried in a hole, and you'll hear very little about it. The crazy thing about this is they're talking about in the indictment that they used forensic evidence, but it couldn't be the CrowdStrike evidence because the findings are completely opposite of CrowdStrike. So what exactly? How did they get this evidence? Are we supposed to believe that Uncle Bob has looked at the DNC servers, which we believe the chain of custody was broke in that particular deal, and we don't even know if it's available, if it's been wiped, or anything else? Are we supposed to believe that Uncle Bob the Executioner and his Hillary donor posse got access to Podesta's computer, and also got access to the DNC server, the DCCC server? Are we supposed to believe that Uncle Bob, because that's what they're suggesting, they're saying that based on forensics. Not only that, they're saying 180 degrees the opposite of CrowdStrike. CrowdStrike said that they, by the month of June, had exorcised the Russian demons out of the system. But according to Uncle Bob, the Russians were hanging around till October of 2016. CrowdStrike, the DNC, and Debbie Blabbermouth Wasserman Schultz all said that that these intruders had been kicked out, I guess you could say, by CrowdStrike. But apparently that's wrong. CrowdStrike said it was Fuzzy Bear and Fancy Bear who were behind it, two Russian hackers who are behind it. But Uncle Bob says that no, it was actually, who does he blame? Let's see, Uncle Bob. He blames DC leaks and Guccifer 2.0. He blames DC leaks and Guccifer 2.0. So I guess what he's saying is that these 12 Russian intel officials were essentially the personas, the people behind the personas of the DC leaks hacker and the Guccifer 2.0. Now, this is kind of crazy because Guccifer 2.0 has been saying for the longest time that it was an NSA and State Department inside job and that it wasn't him. This individual who's been named to be Guccifer 2.0. I can't pronounce his name or even remember it. But the last word I heard on him about a year ago was he saying, no, I didn't do that. It was, that was, the NSA and the State Department. And it was an inside job. That is what Guccifer 2.0 is saying. So, do you think we're ever going to see the actual forensic findings by Uncle Bob the Executioner? No, because he just pushed it into the DOJ NSD. And once it goes to the DOJ NSD, it's in a lockbox. So, in other words, Uncle Bob the Executioner and his Hillary donor posse have just put out a complete smokescreen saying that they have done some sort of analysis of the... They don't say they've analyzed the server specifically, but the way they word it is that they've analyzed the data and this is their findings. But they never actually say that they looked at the servers. Never say that. And they also say that instead of just a actual hack where someone hacks into the system, they're saying that these things occurred as a result of phishing scams. Phishing scams. So how would Uncle Bob know that unless he had a forensic examination of the DCCC server, the DNC server, and Podesta's computer? But there's nowhere in his report does he say that they did any of those things specifically. So he had a forensic examination of what? What did he forensically examine? He doesn't say. And we're not going to learn because it's now in the black hole of the NSD, Department of Justice National Security Division. He knows that the Russians are almost certainly unlikely to respond by sending 12 Russians over to be, put through a court hearing. And Uncle Bob knows that. So maybe this publicity stunt will do better. But the question is the timing. Why? Now, as I understand, this was made known to Trump a couple of days ago. So so you could say, well, it was done to kind of sabotage Trump or maybe give Trump more ammo. I mean, you could look at it either way. It could work either way, pro or con. But I think it probably had a lot more to do with getting Peter's been stroking us off the front page. Because let's face it, that hearing was a dumpster fire for Peter's been stroking us. Did not go well. Did not go well. And I think that they thought, man, everybody's just looking at this Peter's been stroking us, talking about Peter's been stroking us. They're tearing apart his statements. And it's looking bad. We got to do something. Boom. So, who knows? Maybe they knew what was coming with Peter's been stroking us. It's really hard to say exactly why the timing was this way. I mean, there's several options here, but the timing is interesting. Okay, a couple days, 3 days before before Trump meets with Putin, 1 day after Peter's been stroking us, gives his testimony. It's strange timing. So, is there any more to go with that? Anything else on that particular issue? I think we covered it. Okay, so there's a lot of things that don't add up here with this, but again, it shouldn't because, again, it's just a publicity stunt. But I certainly hope somebody asks that question and we at least get some sort of an answer. What did he actually forensically examine to reach this conclusion? It can't be the CrowdStrike stuff because his conclusions are way different than CrowdStrike's. So what's going on with Uncle Bob the Executioner? What kind of line of bullshit in this big smokescreen and hall of mirrors are we being sold? Just another publicity stunt, ultimately. Hey, you remember about a week ago when I told you that the Democrats were going to run, the thing that they were looking now at running on for 2018 midterms is to abolish ICE. Now, I know a lot of you guys are sitting back there thinking, nah, he's just kind of, yeah, he's being hyperbolic. It's, it's funny. Yeah, it's funny. Good joke, Mike. But they're not really going to do that. No, they would never run on a. Well, here you go, folks. The Dems, the Democratic Communists, have introduced a bill to abolish ICE. So they've now introduced a bill to abolish ICE. Now, I doubt the bill will ever even get out of committee, or even get a vote to get out of committee, quite honestly. I don't even. Again, I mean, this is political suicide. I mean, this is literally political suicide. And it's just not just me saying it. There's Democratic strategists saying this is political suicide. And it is. Unbelievable. They're going to run and try to win on the midterms in 2018 based on their number one thing they're going to push, abolish ICE. They've now introduced a bill to abolish ICE, which will go nowhere. And they already know that over 60, like 65, 64, something like that, percent of people support ICE, or at least think we need ICE. They don't approve of abolishing ICE. It's a very small number of people who want to abolish ICE, like 20% or something. So, there you go. It's a losing issue. Unbelievable. Well, we have the Rotten Reverend Clinton. The Rotten Reverend. You can't go a damn day without the Rotten Reverend. The Rotten Reverend says that Brett Kavanaugh will take the U.S. back to the times of slavery, back to the 1850s. She's nuts. She's nuts, and she's out there running for president, trust me. And she is nuttier than she's batshit crazy. Absolutely unbelievable. So, I'm not going to waste too much time on the Rotten Reverend today. I'm just going to take care of her very quickly, if you don't mind. The Rotten Reverend says Mr. Kavanaugh will take the U.S. back to the times of slavery, which she says will be devastating for workers' rights. Devastating for workers' rights. How was Judge Kavanaugh devastating to workers' rights? Oh, I see. He's not a hack for the union lobbies. That's basically what that means. Civil rights. Most of those issues have been settled. There's settled case law. Legally speaking, there is no more oppression through any. There's no. It's all been fixed. Basically, we have all the civil rights you can have. Every person of a minority or every sexual orientation, everything you can think of is now covered under complete civil rights. I mean, you cannot discriminate against people. I mean, what more is there? Oh, of course, she's got the LGBT rights. Now, maybe the Rotten Reverend Clinton's out of touch with the current reality, but in case she hasn't noticed, the L's, the lesbians, wanted the T's, the transgenders, kicked out because the L's, the lesbians, are not compatible with the T's, the transgenders. The L's tried to have the T's kicked out, but the other wouldn't go along with it. The G's and B's wouldn't go along with it. So then the L's decided, well, if they couldn't kick out the T's, then they'll just get out of it themselves. So now they have a campaign, get the L out. So the lesbians won out because they can't coexist with the transgenders inside the LGBT. The Rotten Reverend Clinton needs to get up to speed. You're way behind the curveball. Way behind the curveball. Swing and a miss. Hillary, strike three. You're out. Let's see. She's never out. Let's see. Women's rights. That's a joke. That's an absolute joke. He's got a wife and two daughters. So he's going to take actions. I think what she means is abortion. I think that's what she's actually talking about here. Women's rights. Oh, you mean, yeah, a woman's right to, like in fact, I like to look at it this way. Women's rights. She's pissed about women's rights. Well, how about the 1.2 million executions of children in the womb who are executed every year, half of which are probably women. So that's like, what, 600,000 female babies killed in the womb every year? That's women's rights, I guess. What about those females in the womb, Reverend? Because it was up to the Reverend and her friends. They would allow abortions, a week after the child was had been born. Well, it's only been a week. It's only been a week. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, we can abort the day before. Why not 5 days later? What the fucking? It's a difference. Today, I'm not. Today I'm pregnant. I have the baby. A week later, we go ahead and just kill it. It's only 5 days. That's the rotten Reverend Clinton and the way they think. You think I'm joking, right? No. You stick around long enough, there'll be left-wingers pushing for giving women the right to choose to murder their children a week after. It's only an extra week. And it's so messy inside the womb. Just go ahead and let her have the birth and go ahead and kill the child. I guess that's what the rotten Reverend Clinton is advocating for. She's also saying that, let's see, include those to make, oh yes, including those to make our health decisions. You think that Mr. Kavanaugh is going to keep women from making their own health decisions. Again, she's talking to her abortion friends, because what she's speaking to, a whole hall full of women. She's talking in a fundraiser to a bunch of women, is who she's talking to. So she's talking abortion. So to the rotten Reverend Clinton and to a lot of people who think like her, abortion is a health decision. Wrong. Abortion is not really a health decision. Not exactly. So let's move on. That's all I can tolerate of the rotten Reverend Clinton. Today, we have Michael Flynn Jr. He has a question for Peter's been stroking us. Michael Flynn Jr. has a question for Peter's been stroking us. He wants someone to ask Peter's been stroking us if he thinks that General Flynn lied during his interview. That is a very good question. Very good question. I'm surprised someone didn't ask that. There are just so many questions to ask. Peter's been stroking us and so little time to do it, especially with the Democrats interrupting at every turn. And Peter's been stroking us refusing to answer questions. So, that's a very, very good question, because it's an issue that's up in the air, but we need to see those 302s. Not sure how many of them there are, how doctored they've been. We need a little help. Just a little help. Now, we learn some things, again, every day as we go back and watch more and more video of Peter's been stroking us. Now I think I've seen just about everybody I wanted to see. There's no Democrats I wanted to see, okay? Not one. I think I watched just about every Republican questioning of Peter's been stroking us. Watched a couple of them twice or three times. Louis Gohmert and Gowdy and a couple others I watched more than once. So let's dig in here a little bit more and talk about something I thought was, I didn't catch it the first time around. I certainly did the second. It was, I forget who was asking the questions, but Peter's been stroking us. They were asking about the interview with the rotten Reverend Clinton, which occurred on July the 2nd, 2016. 2 days before July 4th. And 4 days before Comey came out and exonerated her. Do you know that he was asked who was in the room at the time that the rotten Reverend Clinton was being so-called interviewed, questioned? We learned from Peter's been stroking us that there were 3 FBI agents and he was one of them. Peter's been stroking us and 2 other FBI agents. There were five DOJ attorneys. And right now they're trying to get the name of those attorneys, but I'm pretty sure we can figure out who they were. You know what I mean? Oh, I think we can figure out exactly who those 5 DOJ attorneys are. I bet you we can get about 90%. It's pretty much of a lock. We can find out who those people were, and they will. So there were 3 FBI agents and 5 DOJ attorneys questioning Clinton, allegedly. Having tea and crumpets, actually. Talking about golf, Brexit, and grandchildren. Now, it appears that the rotten Reverend Clinton was there with 5 lawyers. 5. Why did the rotten Reverend Clinton need 5 lawyers to answer some questions? When in fact she wasn't under oath, wasn't being recorded, no notes were actually being taken at the time. They made some notes afterwards. They're trying to get their hands on those notes. They're trying to they want to interview all the people who were in that interview. Congress wants to, Goodlatte's committee wants to interview all 5 of the FBI, both. They've already interviewed Peter's been stroking us. They want to interview the other 2 FBI agents, all 5 of the DOJ attorneys, and I doubt if they're going to get to interview the Clinton attorneys. I doubt that they would show up. They can go ahead and subpoena them, but they probably won't. They'll probably stand in contempt. So this is very interesting to me. It's just, you don't think about why would an innocent person who has nothing to hide show up with 5 lawyers, especially knowing that she was going to be exonerated anyway, because that was probably taken care of a week earlier with the tarmac meeting. Not even a week, just a couple of days before was the tarmac meeting. The tarmac meeting, then this goes down, then Comey exonerates her, all within a week. This is so obvious, man. So obvious. But I thought that was interesting. I caught it the second time around. I didn't the first time. Hey, you want a good brain teaser? Here's a really good brain teaser. Here's one that your mind can work on for quite some time. So you'll probably need my timeline in front of you when you do this one. This will require some thought. But here's a good little brain teaser for you. You ready? Something else we learned from Peter's been stroking us. Why did what's the question? Yes. Why did David Corn give Bruce Orr why get this question right. Why did Corn give Bruce Orr, who passed on the dossier to the FBI, why did he do this 1 week after writing a story on it? So David Corn writes a story about this, not so much that he didn't say the word dossier, but he wrote about the Trump-Russia. There was an investigation looking into Trump. He had people on his campaign connected to Russians. So he writes this story. David Corn of Mother Jones writes the story. It's published. It's out there for a solid week. And then a week after he writes the story, he feeds it to Bruce Orr, who then feeds it to the FBI. Why did Bruce Orr need to feed, or David Corn in this case, need to feed Bruce Orr a story that he essentially had already written a week earlier? It was public. It was in the public. He could have just picked up the phone and said, hey, read my column from last week. But he physically passed things to Bruce Orr that was exactly what he wrote about in a story, and he does this a week after the story is public. Then he gives it to the FBI. That's one that you could think about for a while, but it won't take too long to figure out exactly why he was doing that. They simply needed the evidence. He was just simply another channel. They were manufacturing it. They were manufacturing it, just as we've been saying for a very long time. Manufactured evidence is what we're talking about here. And on this same point, another thing Peter's been stroking us says is that he says that the FBI got the dossier from David Corn, Glenn Simpson, and McCain. Now this goes into the line of questioning of Jim Jordan. Jim Jordan is trying to get Peter's been stroking us to say who Corn was and who Simpson was, one of their first names. Peter's been stroking us would not come off the first names, but we all know he's talking about David Corn and he's talking about Glenn Simpson. So finally, Jordan got tired of asking the question and just conceded for the record, okay, well, we think it's David Corn and we think it's Glenn Simpson. Pretty sure it's Corn and Simpson. And also McCain. We know McCain. Okay, so the question that Jordan is drilling down on with Peter's been stroking us is that he's essentially saying what you're saying in this text where Peter's been stroking us is texting Lisa Page. He is describing 3 different dossiers, essentially. He's saying, look, we got the one. This is what Peter's been stroking us is texting. He's texting, hey, this dossier we got, and he's talking about the one they got from Bruce Orr, is different. He's saying that the one that they got from McCain and the other one were the same, but they get this one from Bruce Orr, and it's different. And this is the point that Peter's been stroking us is making in the text. Now, the most important thing about this is that he's really talking about 3 different dossiers or 3 different versions of the dossier, 3 different sources of the dossier, and they're all coming to the FBI. They're all coming to the FBI, and Peter's been stroking us is telling Jim Jordan in the hearings that the FBI, now he says not he personally, Strzok says I personally, Bruce Orr didn't personally give me these memos or part of the dossier. He didn't give me these. He gave them to the FBI, but said he wasn't permitted to say who, or maybe he didn't know who Bruce Orr gave them to at the FBI. Strzok is just saying that Orr gave them to the FBI, but he's not saying specifically who in the FBI. He's just saying that the FBI got this dossier material from Bruce Orr. They got it from John McCain, and they got the version of David Corn. So, and essentially the source of all of them is basically the same. They're all allegedly Christopher Steele, right? The only problem with all that is that when Glenn Simpson testified in his hearing, he was asked this question, and Glenn Simpson says he never gave the dossier to the FBI. Glenn Simpson is saying he never gave the dossier to the FBI. So the only conclusion that you can draw here, I think, the only rational one, is that what Simpson is saying is that what he's saying is he probably gave it to to Bruce Orr. Simpson's probably saying that he gave it to Bruce Orr, but he didn't say that. Okay, Simpson is flat out denying he gave it to the FBI, but clearly Peter Benstrokenis is saying that one of the versions came from Simpson. So he must be talking about getting it from Orr, from Simpson to Orr to the FBI, unless he's suggesting it went directly from Simpson to the FBI, which Simpson vehemently denies. But Simpson vehemently denies it going to the FBI, period. Now, if they get Simpson to call him back and say, okay, Glenn Simpson, you said that you never gave it to the FBI. But we know from Peter Benstrokenis, he says that the FBI did get it from you, one of the three versions. At which point, Simpson may say, well, you asked me if I gave it to the FBI. I didn't give it to the FBI. I gave it to Bruce Orr, and he gave it to the FBI. Whether or not Simpson knew that or not, you have to assume he did. I mean, he has to know he gives it to Bruce Orr. Well, Bruce Orr is, over there at the NSD. They don't, DOJ NSD itself doesn't prosecute the cases or do that type of field investigation. The FBI would do that. So, Orr could only be a middleman. That's the only thing he could do. He wouldn't be able to prosecute based on it or start his own investigation based on it. He's in the national security side of it. He's not a prosecutor. He's not a DOJ attorney per se. I'm sure he is an attorney, but he's not acting as a prosecutor. So this, of course, creates, again, a big problem for Peter Benstrokenis and for Bruce Orr, who will be getting questioned shortly, and I guess we'll find out from Bruce Orr if he answers the question of whether or not he was the intermediary between Simpson and the FBI. But it's a very good chance as well that Peter Benstrokenis is lying. It's very possible that Peter Benstrokenis is lying. But one way or another, we can now see the farther we go and the more these people get questioned, that they're getting crossed up. Already we have Peter Benstrokenis getting crossed up with James Comey. Now he's getting crossed up with, and he's crossed up with McCabe as well. Now he's getting crossed up with Simpson. Eventually, that's why I say there's people going to jail. There's people who are not telling the truth here. I mean, somebody's lying. Somebody is lying. Period. It's the only way you can look at this. So, devastating information. Again, it's all coming out, my friends. Lots of people are going to jail. I can't say if it's going to be 3 months, 6 months, or another year or 2 years. I don't know. But I'm telling you, it's all coming out. You cannot hide this level of corruption. Peter Benstrokenis, his act did not go over very well. I don't think anyone believed him. I mean, it's impossible to believe. Nobody with common sense can read those texts and believe that there was no bias involved when you look at the facts of how the investigations went. And of course, now it looks like Lisa Page is going to get some revenge on the two guys who tried to throw her under the bus, McCabe and Peter Benstrokenis. So things are going to get very, very interesting. She's cooperating. She's singing like a bird. My. We're winning. You guys have a good day. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Bye.